Raider Nation, what's going on? You're watching the Raiders Report. It's Mitchell Renz here from Chat Sports. And my question to everybody out there, will Jimmy Garoppolo be on the Raiders in 2024? I've had a lot of people ask me this probably over the last week since Josh McDaniels was fired, since Dave Ziegler is no longer the general manager of this team. And it's a reasonable question because Garoppolo signed a 3-year contract with the Silver and Black. But you know what? I got to answer it, and I'm going to do that at the very, very end of today's show. To make sure that you never miss anything around the Silver and Black, hit that subscribe button. If you sound like me, and it's Thursday that I am recording this video, hit that subscribe button. I was screaming my head off when the Raiders fired McDaniels. I was screaming my head off when the Raiders won against the Giants. I still don't have a voice. You know why? Because I scream Raiders. I love this team from the world and back. And if you're like that as well, click that subscribe button. It's free. You got nothing to lose. So will Jimmy Garoppolo get cut? Remember, Garoppolo was signed because he is a Josh McDaniels guy. Previously played with him with the New England Patriots. Thought that Jimmy G was going to be able to run the McDaniels system. As we know, it did not work. If you listen to the recent reports, it sounds like Dave Ziegler didn't want Jimmy Garoppolo, which, is a very interesting thing to hear overall because, you could have went with maybe like a Lamar Jackson. You could have went with maybe an Aaron Rodgers, and Josh McDaniels was like, I'm a guru. Let's go with Jimmy G here. But Garoppolo signed a 3-year, $72.75 million contract, and that contract has been renegotiated because of the injury clause. They didn't know if he was going to be ready for the regular season. There was a lot of unknowns with Garoppolo. So the fact that Jimmy G signed that 3-year deal, the Raiders had to restructure it, which then also gives him 2 void years in 2026 and 2027. So if you don't know what void years are, essentially the Raiders are going to be paying Jimmy Garoppolo if he finishes out his entire contract in 2026 and in 2027. Thank you very much, Josh McDaniels. His cap hit, though, in 2024 and 2025 is at $28.5 million. The reason why this is a intriguing conversation is simply because nobody is wanting to pay a backup quarterback $28.5 million. It is what it is, right? But I'm not paying a backup quarterback that amount of money. So can the Raiders trade him? Can they cut him? Do they just keep him? What is the best option to do with Jimmy G, who really struggled this year? I mean, he was bad. I don't know if Garoppolo is a top 30 quarterback. To me, out of all the starting quarterbacks in the NFL, Garoppolo, I don't even think right now is a top 35 QB because of his injuries, because of his arm strength. He had 1,205 yards, 7 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, shit, leading into Thursday Night Football, Week 10. Garoppolo is still tied for the NFL lead in interceptions. That's how bad, that's how just terrible Jimmy G was. But you know what? Josh McDaniels thought that he was going to be the better option. So now that you know that Aidan O'Connell is going to be your starting quarterback for the remainder of the year, and even though I think Jimmy G is washed, he's probably still better than Brian Hoyer. I mean, you saw what Brian Hoyer was. Unfortunately, week 7 against the Bears? I mean, that was just get out of the tub bad for Grandpa bad. Like, it was ugly, ugly to watch. So the question here is this. This is the question that I want the entire nation to answer. R for return, L for leave. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's show. The only question that, honestly, I need y'all to answer. Will Jimmy Garoppolo return to the Raiders next season? My answer coming up after this YouTube ad break. There is a 0, and I mean 0% chance that Jimmy Garoppolo will be on the Raiders next season. It's not going to happen. Jimmy G's not going to take a pay cut, and even if he's willing to take a pay cut, if I'm the Raiders, I don't want this guy on my team. He cannot help you in any way, shape, or form anymore. Garoppolo at one point was a good game manager. You can't be a game manager if you have no arm, you turn over the football. And I said this probably a million times at this point on the show. I can throw a football further than Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm very confident in that. And I think a lot of people watch the show could probably throw a football further than Jimmy Garoppolo. And anybody that has an ounce of a brain would know that Jimmy G could never have gotten it done, and probably that's why Dave Ziegler never wanted them to sign him. But you know what? Mark Davis decided to hire an offensive guru, and Josh McDaniels, thank for the Lord. Thank you so much that guy is no longer a part of this team because Josh McDaniels stinks. When you see how happy Raiders players are right now, it tells you everything that you need to know. It tells you everything you need to know after that Week 9 game against the Giants. Think about this. Josh Jacobs gives the game ball to Antonio Pierce. Devontae Adams gives the game ball to Aidan O'Connell. Max Crosby gives the game ball to Champ Kelly. That tells you everything you needed to know. Jimmy Garoppolo was really bad at football, and he will not be on this team next season. So the question is, what exactly do they do with him? Do they trade him? Do they cut him? I'll tell you what the Raiders are going to do with Jimmy Garoppolo. But first, I got to show some love to today's sponsor, PrizePicks. If you don't already know, go to PrizePicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a $100 deposit match. So there's a lot of people out there that love fantasy, and for people that watch this show, you'll know that fantasy football is how I got started doing what I do right now. And for me this upcoming week, I wanted to use my head a little bit more than my heart, which is kind of what I've been going with PrizePicks, and it is what it is. I'm going to take the less on passing yards with Aidan. I'm going to go less in receiving and Devontae Adams, but I'm going to go more with Josh Jacobs. This is a game that I expect the Raiders to feature the running back position this season. In games that the Raiders have won, Josh Jacobs averages 25 touches a game. He averages just around 22.5 carries a game in the games that they win. And I do not fear the Jets' offense at all, but I do fear the Jets' ability to get after Aidan O'Connell. And if Colton Miller is dealing with a little bit of an injury, the way that you offset that, take some pressure off your rookie QB, is by feeding the rock to Josh Jacobs. So if anybody out there wants to play, if anybody else out there wants to get started, go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and make sure that you use code CLNS. That link's going to be available to you guys down in the comments. It's going to be available in the description down below. PrizePicks, whatever game you plan on watching, you put $10 down on PrizePicks. I'll tell you this, it's going to be one of the most electric games that you have ever watched. So let's keep talking here about Jimmy Garoppolo and whether or not he's going to be returning to the silver and black next season, because it is a big-time conversation. When you have a quarterback like Jimmy G, and let's face it, I love my fiance to the moon and back, Alex, and hell, I bet even Chugs' fiance knows who Jimmy Garoppolo is. When you have a name that is as big as Jimmy G, and maybe the women in our life like Jimmy G for another reason, he's a good-looking dude, right? It is what it is. But when you have a big-name guy making the amount of money that he's going to make, and you have that salary cap at $28.5 million, the Raiders got to figure out a way, because I know this, if I'm a new head coach, if I'm a new general manager, I got to sit back and I got to think, shit, what exactly am I going to do with this situation? Am I just going to have a backup quarterback that's making $28.5 million? No, you're not going to do that. Oh, am I going to start Jimmy Garoppolo? No, you're not going to do that. So whoever is the brand new head coach, whoever is the new general manager, one of the very first things that they're going to have to decide is, what am I going to do with number 10? The Raiders named him a team captain. He's still a very much liked player in that locker room. But I do wonder, can he be a distraction, because he's a part of the McDaniels regime. He's a part of the Ziegler regime. He was a part of the Mick Lombardi. They're no longer there. And yeah, I get it. Back in 2022, Garoppolo looked a lot better, and maybe it was just Josh McDaniels. I don't have the answer to you, but I am a big eye test guy. And from watching Jimmy Garoppolo this season, there is not another quarterback in the NFL that has a worse arm than Jimmy G. And then you add that on top of the fact that he can't stay healthy. I don't know what to do with him. Actually, I do know what to do with him. I'm going to tell you what you need to do with him. But what should the Raiders do with Jimmy Garoppolo? Do you trade him? Do you cut him? Or do you keep him? No matter what, the Raiders will be eating some money. Are you the type of person that just wants to eat it and move on? Or you're like, man, we're going to be paying him anyway. We might as well keep him on the roster. For me personally, there is no team alive that is willing to trade for Jimmy Garoppolo's contract. Plus, he stinks and he always gets injured. I will admit, though, and there is a 1, maybe 5% chance that he ends up going to the New England Patriots. And here's the story that I'm going to paint. Bill Belichick, no longer the head coach. New England brings back Josh McDaniels as the head coach. McDaniels is so much in his way that he thinks, I can make this happen. Brings in Jimmy Garoppolo, trades for him, and now he's the new starting quarterback of the New England Patriots because they don't have anything in Mac Jones. They don't have anything in Bailey Zappi. But you have to think about this. The team that ends up trading for Jimmy Garoppolo, the Raiders end up saving $11.4 million. They end up eating $17.1 million. The new team ends up taking on his base contract, so whatever the team is, they're going to take on $11.3 million. So you'd get a starting quarterback in the NFL at $11.3 million. And if I'm being honest with you, I don't see an NFL team giving up more than a 5th-round pick for Jimmy Garoppolo. So if you're the Raiders, you're like, man, do I take a 5th-rounder, eat $17.1 million? Sure, you're able to save some money, but that's the conversation that needs to be had there. For me personally, I look at the trade options, and again, I just don't think that a team is going to trade for Garoppolo. It's the exact same reason why a team didn't trade for Derek Carr this past offseason. It's because they know that the Raiders don't want Garoppolo. They know that, why am I going to trade for a player when I think that you're just going to cut him? So to me, the Raiders are going to have to list Jimmy G as a post-June 1st cut. And the reason why you have to list him as a post-June 1st cut is because of the contract that he was given, because of the money. So what's really important about Garoppolo's contract is this. If Jimmy G is on the roster on the 5th day of the 2024 league year, he is going to get $11.25 million roster bonus, which is essentially his base salary. So if you're the new head coach, if you're the new general manager, you have to understand that and have to know that, hey, we have to move on from Garoppolo by March 19th, 2024. The new league year is March 13th at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. So you have to make a decision before he gets this money, because if he gets this money, you're stuck with him. The Raiders don't want to be stuck with him. So due to the way the NFL contracts work, you have to make him a post-June 1st cut, because the Raiders and all NFL teams only get one post-June 1st cut. And the reason why I'm saying that you have to make him a post-June 1st cut is because of this. If the Raiders were to cut him before June 1st, okay? And when I say before June 1st, I mean you can cut a player, let's say March 14th, March 13th, but you can designate him as a post-June 1st cut. So it doesn't count technically until June 1st. If the Raiders just say, no, we're not going to label him as a post-June 1st cut, and they cut him outright before June 1st, well, then it's a dead cap hit of $28.3 million, and the Raiders only save $200K. Bottom line, that's not going to happen. However, if you make him the only player that you're going to designate as a post-June 1st cut, well, then the dead cap hit, it still hurts at $15.5 million, but then you save $13 million. So the way that the Raiders are actually going to save the most money in the whole Jimmy Garoppolo situation is by cutting him post-June 1st, which is why I don't really see them trading him unless it's for like a legit draft pick. Like if you're going to give me a 7th-round pick, I'd rather just save the $4 million or whatever the hell it is, because if you trade him at 17, if you do the post-June 1st, you save 13, that's $4 million in between there. I think I'd rather just save the $4 million, go out and sign a solid veteran in free agency. So the important thing to know is this. The $13 million that the Raiders save by cutting Jimmy Garoppolo, it will not be added to the Raiders salary cap until June 1st, 2024. So you designate him March 13th. Hell, it could happen even before that. You designate Jimmy Garoppolo post-June 1st cut, but it happens earlier, then that means that the Raiders will not see that $13 million until June 1st, which means more videos coming up here on the Raiders Report, because when the Raiders get that extra $13 million after June 1st, I guarantee you they're going to make some moves around it. Now, again, I appreciate everyone that always tunes into the show, and if you don't already know, I am going to be in Las Vegas this weekend on Saturday, November 11th, inside of Resorts World at Red Tail. It is a bar restaurant. To the first 10 people that show up, first round's on me. And if you don't drink like Nico Laz, Nico, let me get you an appetizer. Bottom line is I'm trying to pack the house. I'm trying to show them how Raider Nation gets down. I want to know, and I want to show them how we really, truly get down, because I want Jeremy Chugs and I to be out there for every Raiders home game coming up. I want to be able to hang out with the nation in person. That's how this show continues to grow. So if you're a proud, real one of this show and you're in Vegas, you better show up at 7 p.m. You better be there, because it's going to be a party. It's going to be a lot of fun. You're going to have a chance to meet my dad. We're going to get down. We're going to have a good time. And I know it says 9 p.m., but they told me I can stay as long as I want. So let's keep that thing riding until the night hours, until my flight, until 5 a.m. Let's keep it going. I better see you there at Red Tail.